Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Happy Wednesday, and for those who celebrate it, a very Merry Christmas. Being in a country that does not celebrate Christmas, it is this time of the year that I miss home the most. I hope you're having a good holiday today. I hope you're with your family. Merry Christmas and all the best as we move into 2025. It is certainly going to be a very busy year for China Update. 2025 will be a big year for the Chinese economy. The trade war 2.0 between the US and China, as well as other movements in the geopolitical landscape. So I hope you will follow along on that journey. Now, let's jump in. So to begin with, we start with the Chinese economy, and we have some big, though not particularly unsurprising news that came through late last night. China's policymakers are reportedly gearing up to issue a record 3 trillion yuan, $411 billion in special bonds in 2025, marking a significant leap from this year's 1 trillion yuan in special bonds. According to an exclusive Reuters report, which quotes several unnamed sources close to the policymakers, the funds will be directed towards stimulating consumption, advancing infrastructure projects, which we'll touch on again shortly, and recapitalizing major state-owned banks, a strategic move aimed at revitalizing a slowing economy. The proposed fiscal measures come as China prepares its economic blueprint for the upcoming year. Signaling a shift towards more robust stimulus efforts, Beijing has faced mounting external pressures, including potential tariff measures under the incoming Trump administration and waning demand for Chinese exports. To counter these challenges, policymakers have pledged to expand the headline deficit and ramp up bond sales, focusing on bolstering domestic consumption and investments. Market reactions reflect optimism and caution. China's CSI 300 equity index rose 1.3% in response to the news, while government bond yields climbed, with the 10-year yield increasing by 4 basis points to 1.72%. Economists like Michel Lam from Société Générale note that while the scale of the bond issuance indicates the government's commitment to growth, portions of the funds earmarked for bank recapitalization may not directly stimulate demand. The ambitious fiscal plan includes a focus on modernizing China's industrial base. About 1 trillion yuan will be allocated to sectors like electric vehicles and advanced manufacturing, identified as new productive forces. Additionally, 1.3 trillion yuan will support consumer product subsidies and major construction initiatives. These measures align with Beijing's broader strategy to enhance domestic economic resilience and reduce reliance on exports. Of course, one of the big criticisms Beijing has faced in recent years has been its state policy, but also a state policy that is dependent on surging debt, which we've seen this year, where official numbers themselves show that total social financing, that is total debt in the system, within 12 months has jumped from 300% of GDP to 309% of GDP. At this rate, within 10 years, the country would be at 400% of GDP in terms of debt, and some analysts believe debt levels currently are already much higher. China's finance ministry has emphasized accelerated public spending for 2025, pledging to expand fiscal initiatives to support growth. Local governments are also expected to increase special bond issuances, which are excluded from the official budget deficit. Analysts estimate the fiscal stimulus package will amount to approximately 2.6% of China's 2023 GDP, surpassing forecasts from institutions like UBS and Goldman Sachs. While the magnitude of the stimulus underscores Beijing's intent to tackle economic headwinds, the effectiveness of these measures will be closely watched as China navigates a challenging global landscape in the year ahead. Like I just said, next year is going to be a big year for China, so make sure you're subscribed to China Update if you want to follow along as the developments unfold. Okay, next up for the economy. Today, Wednesday, local time, China's central bank, the People's Bank of China, kept its one-year medium-term lending facility MLF rate unchanged at 2% while withdrawing a record 1.15 trillion yuan, $158 billion from the financial system. This marks the largest liquidity withdrawal since 2014 and reflects the country's cautious approach ahead of potential trade tensions with the US. The decision aligns with earlier pledges for moderately loose monetary policy and proactive fiscal tools to support the slowing economy. However, no major stimulus measures have been introduced yet, signaling restraint as policymakers anticipate the tariff threats from President-elect Donald Trump. Economists, including Ming Ming at CITIC Securities, predict rate cuts of 40 to 50 basis points in 2025 and possible reductions in banks' reserve requirement ratios by year end. The People's Bank of China has also shifted focus to the 7-day reverse repo rate for guiding market borrowing costs, indicating evolving policy priorities. Markets now anticipate larger rate cuts next year. Meanwhile, and finally for the economy, yesterday the folks over at Visual Capitalist published this graph, writing that China's GDP growth is now lagging the rest of Asia. Incredibly, even Japan is growing faster. Quote, China's economy is facing a series of significant challenges, including a property crisis and high youth unemployment. After decades of rapid growth, the country is now expected to experience less economic growth than other Asian nations. This graphic illustrates the projected growth of per capita GDP for selected Asian nations between 2023 and 2026, based on data compiled by HSBC as of November 2024. End quote. The ruling party faces a, quote, long battle, end quote, to reflate the economy, according to Robin Singh, chief China economist at Morgan Stanley, who told Bloomberg Television that 2025 will, quote, be a year of trying, end quote. Next up, China is constructing the world's largest airport on a man-made island, adding another record to its impressive aviation achievements. The Dalian Jinzhou Bay International Airport, located off the country's northeast coast, will cover a 20 square kilometre, 7.7 square mile artificial island. When completed, it will surpass Hong Kong International Airport and Japan's Kansai Airport as the largest of its kind. Designed to handle 80 million passengers annually across 540,000 flights, the airport will feature 4 runways and a 900,000 square metre, 969,000 square foot passenger terminal. The first phase of operations is expected to begin in 2035. Despite the ambitious scale, construction has faced significant challenges. Li Xiang, chief engineer for Dalian Airport Construction and Development Co., noted the project's complex geological conditions and high drilling difficulty, compounded by a demanding timeline. Dalian, a city of 7.5 million people, has historically been a transport hub due to its proximity to Japan and South Korea. Its current airport has exceeded capacity despite multiple expansions, prompting the need for this new facility. Planning began in 2003, but construction only gained momentum recently. The development is part of China's broader aviation expansion, with Beijing Daxing International Airport opening in 2019 and projections for 450 airports by 2035. China is on track to pass the US and become the world's largest air travel market. But some Chinese scholars are coming out and warning about China's overinvestment in infrastructure, including airports like these, which we will discuss next. But just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode of China Update, don't forget to hit the like button. If you'd like to help keep China Update financially sustainable, have access to bonus exclusive content, or just give the channel or myself a gift on Christmas, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. This is a tremendous help too. Thank you so much, everybody, for the ongoing support. And finally for today, scholars with the independent Chinese think tank Unbound, during a discussion session in the eastern city of Hangzhou last week, warned that China faces a growing challenge of overinvestment in large but inefficient projects, a practice deeply rooted in habitual approaches rather than economic rationale. The speakers stressed the need for strategic reforms to ensure sustainable growth and curb the negative consequences of such investments. Chen Gong, founder of the think tank, recently highlighted this issue, stating that future development cannot rely on outdated methods characterized by low investment efficiency and rising local government debt. He called for rational adjustments, advising policymakers to, quote, know where to hit the brakes and where to step on the gas, end quote. China's heavy reliance on infrastructure projects to stimulate short-term economic growth has led to significant financial burdens for local governments. Many projects, including unused high-speed railway stations and unfinished housing complexes, have failed to yield anticipated returns. These poorly planned ventures have left local governments saddled with debt, struggling to maintain essential public services such as education and transportation. Zhao Zhijiang, an Unbound researcher, criticized the prevalent one-size-fits-all approach, advocating for solutions tailored to local conditions. He also stressed the importance of allowing market forces to operate more freely, encouraging venture capital to focus on high-impact areas like semiconductors, biotechnology, and biopharmaceuticals. A recent Hong Kong-based South China Morning Post article argues that examples of inefficient investments underscore the urgency of this reform. Haitou and Hele, high-speed railway stations in Hainan, quote, which remained idle for years despite significant construction costs, illustrate the consequences of misaligned priorities, end quote. Such cases highlight the need for better planning, stricter oversight, and a shift toward sustainable development strategies. Now, we will end today's episode with these observations on this point made by Peking University Professor of Finance Michael Pettis yesterday. Quote, this really should have been addressed a decade ago, but Chen Gong's recent speech is part of the growing and increasingly public opposition by Chinese economists and public advisors to the economy's over-reliance on non-productive investment in infrastructure to generate GDP growth. One of the gravest challenges China's future faces is how to compress inefficient and already excessive investments, he said, adding that it is no longer feasible to approach future development using past methods that were often marked by low investment efficiency and rising local government debt. End quote. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Merry Christmas. Have a good Christmas, have a good holiday period, and I will see you all tomorrow.